Get 15% off the Fullest entire product line with code The Fullest Podcast at checkout. One of the main ingredients in our product line, saffron, has been proven over and over again in clinical double-blind placebo trials to be an effective form of treatment for depression, anxiety, and ADHD. Saffron has been used by many cultures for thousands of years for these purposes, and now the research is here to finally back it up, proving that plant medicines and ancient healing practices can actually be an effective alternative to pharmaceuticals. From caffeine-free latte powders to saffron baths and capsules, there's something for any modern woman looking for ancient healing. Again, that's code The Fullest Podcast at checkout for 15% off. I hope you enjoy your new daily saffron ritual. Hi everyone, welcome to the Fullest Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Bostwick, and today's guest is Dr. Sarah Rahal. ARMRA is the brainchild of Dr. Sarah Rahal, who's a double board certified pediatric neurologist with expertise in environmental and functional medicine. She trained at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York, and prior to founding ARMRA, which we'll get deep into, and I'm so excited to share with you guys all about it, she was an assistant professor of neurology and pediatrics and director of pediatric headache at the ICANN School of Medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital. Hi.
Hi, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you on. I was just so incredibly inspired by you last time we chatted, and I learned more about you and ARMRA, and your background is just so special and so specific. And you might actually be able to hear my daughter in the background. She's here. She's with us today. But I'm just so amazed at everything that you've done and created and what led you to ARMRA. So can you share with us a little bit about, I want to get into like Colostrum and ARMRA, but I know that there was a background into why you chose to develop and like get into this specific market with Colostrum, because not very many people even know what it is. But I know prior to that, you were kind of interested in creating maybe a formula. So there are reasons behind that, because there are so many aspects to formula right now that's on the market that's not good. So I know that you shared that with me. I'd love to share that with our audience. I know they'd be interested.
Sure. So I come from a pretty traditional path. I'm a allopathically trained physician. I worked in New York, ran a busy practice treating kids with chronic pain and headache, and really was struck by what I was seeing in my practice, which mirrored everything I was reading in the literature, which is that nowadays chronic diseases are absolutely skyrocketing in kids. 54% of children have a chronic disease diagnosis, 54%. And in the 1960s, it was 1.6.
That's insane.
So we didn't undergo some kind of genetic mutation in a generation and a half. All these health issues are driven by a modern environment that very rapidly changed over the past few decades. Post World War II, with the change in industry, we had an introduction of never before seen chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, infesting our air, our water, our food supply. We have heavily processed ingredients masquerading as food. We have unregulated and untested chemicals in our bath, body, home care, even toy products and furniture. And all of these things have really detrimental consequences for health. And so I left clinical medicine with the ambition of building something that could serve more people than I ever could one-on-one in an office. And I thought, as you said, Nikki, I thought at the time maybe I'd be working on an infant formula, because over 80% of young kids receive infant formula at some point in their development, various reasons why some women can't breastfeed or choose not to. And The problem with the formula market is that it basically reads like a chemistry experiment. It's a formula that was grandfathered in the 70s, led by maltodextrin and corn syrup solids and all of these artificial ingredients, and it doesn't have any of the nutritive properties of breast milk. And so I thought I'd be working on developing a better version of that. And so I was researching at the time human milk, specifically colostrum. And colostrum is the first milk that all mammals produce. All mammals. It's produced for the first 48 to 72 hours after delivery. For any of you who are moms, you recognize this stuff. It's the first stuff that comes out. It's really thick and dark yellow. It's actually called liquid gold. And it's kind of like a food, but it acts more like an immunization shot for the baby. It is chock full of all of these super interesting peptides and fats and fibers and growth factors and antibodies and bioactive molecules that can't be found in any other natural source. And they act almost like a blueprint in the body and kind of optimize development of all the different pathways early in life. And it's one of the reasons why infants who don't get any colostrum have a higher risk of developing immune dysregulating issues later in life. So this stuff is super important. And I'm combing through the literature on this, and what I was most struck by is that I wasn't just coming across research saying, oh, this is really helpful for babies. There are over 5,000 research publications documenting that it has health benefits at all stages of life. There's even 2 recent clinical trials showing that it's at least 3 times more effective than the flu vaccine at preventing flu. And I said, why have I never heard of this stuff before? And why is this thing for babies so helpful if you take it when you're at a different age? And what I came to appreciate is that one of the most impactful ways that all these ingredients in colostrum work together is they seal up something called the immune barriers in the body. And that means just like we have skin on the outside, this physical barrier that separates us from the outside world, we have the same kind of barrier that lines the inside of the body. It's called the immune mucosal barrier. And it lines our nose, our eyes, our mouth, sinuses, lungs, gut, urinary tract. It's literally like the skin on the inside. But it's the interface between everything we inhale and ingest from the environment and our bloodstream. And all these modern new exposures that I talked about, the pollutants, the pesticides, the chemicals, the first pathway they hit in the body, and the most detrimental thing they do, is they break down the integrity of these immune barriers. They make them more permeable than they're supposed to be. What that does is that lets things cross into the body that shouldn't, to trigger the immune system inappropriately and drive inflammation. And inflammation is what underpins almost every single modern chronic disease that we know of. So it's a big things like autoimmune conditions and MS, but it's also the day-to-day health issues that everybody you know struggles with. It's the unwanted weight gain, the mental fog, the digestive problems like bloating, it's the eczema, the rashes, the low energy levels. Low-grade inflammation is at the underpinning of all of the modern issues that we take as normal nowadays, but there's nothing normal about them. It comes down to the integrity of these barriers. And what's interesting is that while we live in this environment where the barriers are constantly being assaulted by all these, modern chemicals and pollutants that we developed, when babies are born, they also have a problem with the barrier because it's immature. So colostrum evolved in mammals 300 million years ago, specifically to be the first food that goes into an infant's body and seal up the barrier like glue to protect them. And it does the same exact thing if you take it when you're 2 years old or 20 years old or 90 years old. So it's like this ancient superfood, literally superfood, that is uniquely honed for the problem we find ourselves in today's modern environment. And that was my aha moment, Nikki. That's when I said, I've never heard of this stuff, and this has potential to help so many people that I know, never mind reach people I don't even know, and I have to get the word out.
That's so incredible. And just coming from like a space of, researching formula, infant formula. And like you said, it's like a science experiment. And
Yeah.
this is nature's food. Like it's exactly how, our breast milk is always changing based off of like what the baby
That's
needs.
right. Yep.
And it's so intelligent. And so this is like as close as you can get to that, because it is that. It is milk, breast milk, or milk from a mammal that is intelligent, that has all the compounds.
It's intelligent. It's a living food.
Yeah, and I always think about that too when we try and mimic things like that, because it's all based off of what we currently know to screen, right? Like we're like, okay, we know to screen for vitamin D. We know to screen for X, Y, and Z. So then we find it in something and then we try and replicate it. But what about all the things that we don't even know that it's already doing?
Exactly. Evolution, Mother Nature, is wise beyond our capacity. And this kind of almost this hubris that we have in today's modern era, just because we have technology to find things, to think that we have it all figured out and we can outdo what 300 million years of evolutionary pressure and anti-fragility have perfected. It's short-sighted. These nutrients exist in a matrix that we don't understand how they work together, and you have to take things in their whole form to really reap the full benefits, instead of this piecemeal approach that we do today.
Yeah, I completely agree. And with that, though, I think with colostrum comes like a lot of questions of how it's sourced. And, those were questions that I had asked you, and I was so incredibly amazed by the length that you go to make sure that the colostrum you get is not only the highest quality, but also sourced in a way where it's not affecting the newborn mammal or whatever cow that needed it. Like it's extra. So can you share with us a little bit about your sourcing and also that component to it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good question. So, colostrum use as a supplement dates back thousands of years to Ayurvedic medicine. It's actually an ancient food. It's been harnessed for its health benefits in many ancient traditions. And so it's been taken from cows traditionally. Bovine colostrum is very, very, very similar to human colostrum. But I knew that we could do better, because my goal at the end of the day was to create the highest integrity product. And one of the challenges with any dairy product, is a dairy food, right, is that because of FDA regulation in this country, all dairy has to go through this sterilization, pasteurization technique. And that exposes this living food to very high temperatures. Unfortunately, anytime you take a bioactive food, a food with living nutrients in it, and you expose it to high temperatures, it changes the shape of all of the proteins inside of the food. And that actually renders it a totally different substance. The body does not recognize it as a food anymore. We see this absolute surge nowadays of dairy intolerance. If you ask yourself a question, that doesn't make sense evolutionarily. Dairy is the first nutrition we all receive in life. Dairy is the most nourishing and nutritive substance on the planet. Why do we have this surge of intolerance? It's not the dairy itself that's the problem. It's the processing that takes this pure, wholesome food and basically adulterate it and creates a product that the body no longer recognizes, and that triggers the immune system to have a reaction. And so we have issues like bloating and rashes and joint pain with dairy, and it's because of the processing. Most people who have dairy intolerance do just fine if you give them raw dairy. So my goal in creating this product was, how do we safeguard what Mother Nature created and still go through the process of creating a food that is safe and can be sold? And so I spent 2 years, Nikki, in R&D developing what is now ARMRA's proprietary technology. We call it cold chain biopotent technology. So we do all of the pasteurization process without the use of high temperatures. So ARMRA colostrum never is exposed to high heat. It mimics a raw dairy product.
Wow.
So a lot of people who don't tolerate dairy, don't tolerate other colostrum products, etc., do just fine with ARMRA colostrum, because it's actually anti-inflammatory instead of inflammatory. It works in the body the way nature intended it to work and has all of these healing properties. And so we start with the purest sourcing possible. We source exclusively from grass-fed cows, family-owned dairy farms here in the US. We have a co-op of dairy partners. And we take only what's called overflow colostrum, which means that baby calves get fed all they need first, and only the surplus colostrum is collected. And that's what we buy from farmers. Under normal circumstances, this surplus is considered a waste product in the dairy industry. They're legally not allowed to sell it into the milk industry. They're not allowed to sell it as milk, so it gets thrown out or sold to China.
Why?
Yeah. So we upcycle it. We buy the surplus from the farmers, we use it to create ARMRA colostrum, we run it through our process, and what you get at the end of the day is the most pure, potent, and bioavailable colostrum on the market. And so we do research, and our colostrum is 32% stronger at conferring antibacterial immune protection than other colostrums. But it comes down to this processing without the high temperatures. So very proud of all of the thought and detail that went into thinking about how I could craft this. And to our point earlier, Nikki, all of our innovation in technology is about not messing up what Mother Nature did. It's about how do we preserve what Mother Nature crafted in its purest high integrity form without trying to over-engineer it. Our technology ensures that we don't let the modern technology get in the way of delivering what is mimicking a raw product.
Most people don't know this, but an optimized period, which we should all be able to experience, should only last for 4 days, consist of fresh red blood, and no pain or cramping. We've normalized painful periods for so long that we don't know the difference between what's normal and what's just prevalent. I want to share with you that it's possible for you to experience pain-free periods. So many women, even those who eat an unprocessed diet, are experiencing many symptoms that can be healed through a regular pelvic steaming practice. That's why we formulated our womb protector herbs, so modern women can incorporate a steaming practice into their monthly wellness routine and support their body in releasing any stagnation, as well as heal and prevent any UTIs or infections. It's also a wonderful way to support your body postpartum. You can find our womb protector herbs and our womb protector ritual kit that comes complete with a pelvic steaming stool, pot burner, and a box of 4 steaming sachets, all on our website. We hope you can benefit from this practice as much as it has helped all of us on our healing journey. And just for our podcast listeners, we're offering 15% off our website using code FULLEST at checkout.
As someone who has products that we develop as well, I'm so amazed at the extent that you went through. And I know, 2 years of R&D is insane, right? Like, I know that you care about this so much, and I'm so happy that there's a product like this on the market. And one of the things is, I love using it, and I use it even for us as a family, we use it when we feel like we're coming down on something. We feel like, we might be getting a little sick and we're dosing up with our colostrum, but I know that people use it for allergies. So can you talk about how people can use it maybe on a daily basis or on a case-by-case basis?
It really is intended to be a daily use product. Again, we do the best we can with all these modern exposures, buy organic, buy clean label stuff, filter our water and purify our air. But the reality is we can't avoid all of these exposures that are constantly bombarding our immune barriers. So it's meant as a daily use product really to incorporate in your daily routine, because it strengthens and rebuilds that immune barrier, including optimizing the microbiome that lives along these barriers throughout your entire body. And so it's really powerful as a product because it's addressing this foundational pathway that is really our first line of defense. It's our barrier. It's where all of the inflammation starts. So if you can combat that process, the benefits are so far reaching. Not only do you receive really robust immune support, but we hear dramatic stories from our customers. I mean, transformations even about gut health, people with long-standing gut issues, inflammatory conditions, bloating, SIBO, digestive complaints, with dramatic improvements for, again, during allergy season. Your barriers are lining your sinuses and lungs. Really important to keep those fortified during allergy season. So we hear a lot of customers reporting benefit there. And then because ARMRA is addressing the root cause of why so many of these age-related changes can happen with hair growth and with skin dullness and metabolic slowdown, et cetera, customers report very, very dramatic changes when it comes to reactivating hair growth, clear, shining skin. I had a customer cancel her plastic surgery appointment after starting
Oh my gosh.
starting ARMRA. She was scheduled for an eye lift, cancel the appointment. I have customers with gray hair whose hair is turning back to their original color. I would think they made this up, but it's now about a dozen customers who have come back with pictures, before and after pictures, reporting this change. And then, dramatic benefits for metabolism and achieving weight goals and fitness and energy levels and mental clarity. Again, because all of this comes down to the health of the barrier. So really can be the root of transformational changes. When you equip the body with the nutrients it needs, really dramatic things can happen. So ARMRA can be a powerful tool in your toolkit to achieve a host of health goals.
So how long does it take to start working or to feel these results?
It varies. So some of the benefits that I hear from my customers happen most rapidly are often changes with, I would say, bloating, energy levels, and any kind of sinus complaints. Those tend to be the fastest results we hear back from, sometimes just a few days. I would have expected it to be much longer, like several months, for some of the hair regrowth changes and skin changes, but those are also happening within 6 weeks of use. People are starting to notice sprouting of new hair or really dramatic changes in their complexion, and certainly inflammation, weight changes. So things vary, everyone varies. There's variability from person to person just based on your underlying lifestyle factors. So I always recommend 6 weeks of consistent use, but most customers start to notice changes much, much sooner than that.
I mean, like I said, I use it when my kids aren't feeling well. We can tell a big difference. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I even took the unflavored, a whole box of it, and put it in a bath. And
I love that. Yes.
And was amazing because he wasn't feeling well and he was kind of feverish, and it totally helped turn things around. So I'm just a huge believer in it, and
I'm so glad.
I love it so much. And so just knowing, for I haven't done daily use, I've done long periods, but I'm definitely for incorporating it daily. Because the other thing I was going to say, and you mentioned this, is so I've never liked dairy ever since I was a little girl. I just had this aversion to it. And with your colostrum, again, of course I didn't have any sort of reaction to it. And I know that about raw dairy too, where a lot of people who do have experienced reactions, they typically do well with raw dairy, but I didn't have any sort of my regular aversions. It just felt so nice to drink. I love the blood orange flavor. It's so good. And I mean, my baby drinks it. My son, who's 4, he drinks it. My husband loves it. We all love it. We love to use it as a family. And I just knowing now about all these crazy benefits, I'm I need to get my dad on it. I know about the benefits of colostrum, but it's just when you relearn, and coming from you with someone who's, now you have this amazing amount of anecdotal evidence too. And I think it's something that's totally missing in the wellness space. And having been in this scene for a long time as well, I'm so excited to see all these people start adopting this into their daily routine. Again, something that's a whole food based supplement that's really going to, like you said, work with your body and what it needs, because we can only go so far in modern medicine. I didn't think about how we all come into this world having like milk as our superfood, as our food. I never thought about it that way. It just makes so much sense to just continue consuming it, especially when it's coming from such an incredible source. I think that's like a lot of the issues in our modern day food supply in general. Like there are foods that were taken and just fully adulterated, and now you have all these processed foods, and those might seem like they might be a similar ingredient base as their counterpart where it was, but it's a completely different product now, right? Because we are sourcing from factory farms where, we're making up, like you said, we're making up ingredients now as well, like corn syrup and maltodextrin, and adding it to all these things. But it's like, let's go back to basics. Let's go back to like what our grandparents are so lucky and what they grew up with. And I have my husband's grandmother always tells me, well, we ate like this and we're just fine. And like you said, I want to be like, yeah, but you grew up in a time where it was completely different. Like everything was organic, It's so crazy.
Yep.
So to have this as an opportunity to help heal these barriers, because we're constantly being bombarded with glyphosate in our environment.
Exactly.
We know that there's a lot of geoengineering happening with managing our climate change, and there's so many things happening that we're doing on a daily basis that even like people listening to this podcast are probably moms or people that are on the next level and really into their wellness routine and really know the importance of taking care of our bodies. But there's certain things that we don't have control over, and we can't go crazy about it, and all we can do is do what we can to support ourselves. And this is one thing that can really make a huge difference and give us peace of mind too. Like not only will it help you with any sort of issues like rashes, like you said, and other things that people might be currently dealing with, but also preventatively, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just accumulate these exposures over the course of our life, and so much of what we recognize today as these like age-related changes we consider, inevitable, and they don't have to be. Like we can have tools in our toolkit to arrest this process and really turn back the clock in terms of our body's burden with all of these exposures that are so very much a part of our daily life. What's interesting about these barriers too is that they're the most highly regenerative part of the body. They turn over every 2.5 weeks. You have an entirely different lining of your body. You have an entirely different intestinal lining every 2.5 to 3 weeks. So the power you have to really effect change in your body, it's an empowering message, because once you give the body the nutrients to regenerate itself and revive these cells properly to create a strong barrier system, you control this inflammatory process and your body settles down into equilibrium and it starts to function the way that it's supposed to be. That's why these testimonials I speak to about hair color coming back are so striking to me, because it speaks to this power. We think, oh, your hair turns gray as you get older. There's nothing you can do about that. But it's such a visible representation of the power of the body and these cells that stopped producing melanin because of toxic load. These cells in your hair follicles that stop producing pigment because of the toxic load. Once those barriers were restored, those cells picked back right up where they were, picked their function right back up. They regenerated into new healthy cells and started making hair pigment again. So that is happening throughout your body when you restore the integrity of the barriers. And it's a powerful reminder of just how miraculous your body really is, to have transformation and change for things you may not even think are possible. So I always say, when anybody's trying the product, my question is always, what will you discover?
Yeah.
There's sometimes things you don't even know to look for in your body, and you just start noticing these changes. So it can be really a journey.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. It's literally the fountain of youth. Like, you unlocked the fountain of youth, and I'm so grateful for it, because I'm not the type that's ever going to do like Botox or fillers or any surgery. So I'm really excited about it. Like, I need to order. So can you tell people where they can find it? Is it just online? Are there any sort of retailers that you've partnered with?
Yes. So we are exclusively sold online at ARMRA. TRYARMRA.com. There's also thousands of customer testimonials, which are so interesting to read through. I'm always humbled by the stories people are willing to share with us about what they're experiencing, but I always find those helpful. And there's lots of third-party research that was done in ARMRA Colostrum, and we have an assortment of product offerings, a blood orange flavor like you mentioned. We have an unflavored one, which is pretty much tasteless, so it can be added to any food or drink as long as it isn't hot. For the same reasons I mentioned before, we do not want to expose the product to high temperatures because it destroys the integrity of the bioactives. And yeah, you can find the assortment there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, and also for creating this product that we're all going to be on forever for the rest of our lives. So never stop. And yeah, I'm excited to see what unfolds for ARMRA and what other products you guys start developing. It sounds like it could be great for anything. And again, maybe a bath is in order.
Yeah, we should connect on that. Yeah, thank you so much, Nikki, for having me on and giving me the opportunity to introduce Colostrum to your audience. My goal is really to get the word out so people know this is an ingredient that exists and is available.
Thanks so much, Dr. Rahal.